Hey everyone! Today I'm here with Giuseppe, a successful Unger Academy student who wants to tell us about his experience with our training program. Hello, Giuseppe, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Good. So, first of all, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. So, what do you do? What do you do for work?
I am an entrepreneur in the apparel business. And my business started about 40 years ago. And now, I don't know what to say. I mean, it sounds like I'm old by saying 40 years ago, but I was 18 years old then. And now, after 40 years, oh, I'm 40 years older. I started with a store. Then my wife joined me. And then she gave me a hand. And we have two stores, one men's and one women's.
Okay. And what problem did you have before you joined our program?
I started taking the first steps back in 2000. At that time, there were technology stocks, and that was many years ago. And I did some operations then, almost just for fun, because it fascinated me, let's say. The first trades I did back then, they were on STM, telecom, and so on. So we're talking about Italian stocks, and several years ago. And, things were going well. But, as we all know, that after that came the stock market collapse, and some people had big problems. Well, I had very little exposure, as we'll see later in my risk profile. So I never had so many problems. But let's say that experience shaped me because it made me realize that there was still some risk in the markets. And so that experience, although positive at first and then negative, shaped me and taught me to reason in a certain way. Then after that, some time passed, I started to look into technical analysis and read many books. Unfortunately, I can't read English very well, so I try to find translated text into Italian, and I started studying and delved deeper into trading. For example, I was already familiar with the multi-charts platform, and at that time, I even started using Metastop. After that, I got to know multi-charts, and I studied it. I mean, I knew it, and I started. But I didn't do systematic trading. I was trying to code my ideas, but afterwards I realized that it wasn't the best thing to do because there's a difference between the discretionary and the systematic approach. And then at some point, a couple of years went by when I was no longer involved in trading in general. And after that, there's always a second chance, right? I mean, after that period, then came a time when I re-entered the markets with the idea of trading systematically and started to study that approach. And it seems to me that I discovered Algorithmica then. I had a subscription to the Italian magazine and tried to emulate something, but always on a trial basis and with a demo account.
For those who don't know, we're now all one company with Algorithmica.
And after that, I took another course before signing up for the Unger Academy program. I took another course with another trainer and then did the program with Andrea Unger, with Unger Academy. First part of the program, then the extended program, which I did later, to learn more. And this is my experience.
And what are the main differences from the other programs out there?
Well, in terms of my experience, when I learned about your program, a world opened up to me. In the sense that not because of the other course I took, I don't want to badmouth it, but simply because with Andrea, with the Unger Academy program, I could tune in to what Andrea was saying in the program. And so, I found things that fascinated me. And I can say that, unlike the other experience, because I also had let's say I had a total of 3 trainers, but unlike the others, the Unger Academy program gave me an essential foundation on which I feel more confident in developing my scripts as well as my trading systems. It's almost a way of working that, let's say, I can't give up. And what I mean is that now I can't do anything else but develop my strategies using this method. It's clear that there are other methods, better or worse, I don't know. But by now, I've entered this cauldron of ideas and development methods and could hardly do without it. And this is my experience. Because Andrea, I'm talking about Andrea, but when I say Andrea, it applies to the whole academy, the entire group. They have concepts that I have adopted, and that, unlike the others, they give me a method that I think is right and perfect for me. With others, I don't know.
The method has undoubtedly helped you a lot to become as successful as you are today. Is there anything else that helped you along the way?
With the Unger Academy, I understood how risk works and how not to risk more than what you set out to do. And remembering previous experiences, maybe I realized that the mistakes were actually these: making market entries without calculating my risk profile. I didn't even have a risk profile. I traded without even considering that aspect. Instead, through the teachings of the training program, I had the opportunity to test with Titan, to name a software. I also have another software, but Titan, it's the one that I use that allows you to measure your risk tolerance and understand that in the markets, it is essential to determine your risk. Because in this way, you can make your trades, and even if they go badly, you know that you have this risk profile, and you respect it without changing things, without removing strategies, without closing trades and maybe making mistakes. Because even though at first you might think you're doing the right thing, if you hit a take profit or conversely a stop loss and fiddle with things, you then find that you might be right once but wrong 10 other times. You've already planned it. You have to stick to it. And this is what I learned from Andrea. And I wrote down the systems that I work with. Because in 2021, I decided to trade only with my own trading systems and scripts. And yes, I may have even, as they say, elevated my self-esteem.
Wow, so that means we'll see some of your strategies soon for the strategy of the month. Or maybe we've already seen some scripts of yours in the contest?
I submitted a strategy of the month, but I didn't manage to be among the first ones, and that's unfortunate. But I want to say...
It could be this month.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe the day will come when I'll be able to have a rewarded strategy, but the most important thing is that it will go well. Whether I come first or last in the strategy of the month contest doesn't matter to me. It isn't important.
We'll see. So what were the results after applying what you learned in the program with the study you did on the different modules?
Well, let's start with 2020. Because in 2019, I just did a series of tests in demo, so they don't count. In the demo, and the other guys in the program know this, in the demo, the platform can stop and restart because there are problems with IB, for example. Anyways, let's talk about the real live trading. In 2020, I was lucky. But I have to say that I didn't have work only with my own systems. I had other trading systems from other trainers, and then some of my own. Still, I managed to get a positive 37% return. But I didn't lull myself with that result, and I didn't lull myself because, as I learned, and I think even talking to Andrea himself, I don't know if I remember correctly, but I learned that in 2020, it was a year when several systematic traders had outperformed. So they had higher performances than usual. And I achieved a positive 37.46%, and that was a lot. I mean, I'm inspired by 20%. So, 37% for me was
way above that.
Yeah. And then in 2021, I have to tell you the truth. I returned back to Earth again because I had a different risk profile. I just started using Titan. I got the Titan software later because I purchased the full program only later, so I didn't have it before. Anyway, I have to be honest. In 2021, I lost 14%. Also, I don't know, I think that perhaps 2021 was a bit of a challenging year in the markets. Then 2022, I ended it with a positive 7.13% return. And in 2023, I'm almost at positive 5%, about 4.9%. But again, looking back, my risk profile is slightly lower than I used before. And I must also say that now I use my own scripts. I've tested them and placed them in the drawer, for a while. And now I'm using my scripts that I've done. And since I'm not the kind of person who thinks that they're very good at things, I traded there with a lower risk profile. So it is clear that I won't get to the positive 37% I had in 2020, but hey, it doesn't matter. Because, just by the way, and this is not a lesson that I want to teach the other students, because I don't have the skills to do so, but I think that the risk profile isn't important in terms of being stingier or less stingy. It's really important because it lets you be comfortable with what you're doing, in the sense that when you open a position, you already know that if it went into a loss, it would lose, so-and-so. Also, I believe one should always be primarily focusing on what they're losing and not what they're gaining. So you need to get comfortable with how much you're losing. And that was my secret. And then it's clear that you can risk more and earn, more. And what I'm more interested in
stability.
Yes, that's it for me. Then others will do what they want. To do a contest, I would probably deviate from the rule. If one day I should take part in a trading championship, my present risk profile wouldn't be enough. More would have to be done. But I'd change for a contest, sure. Not for what is my real portfolio.
What's also great about this interview is that we can see how different the approaches can be in terms of risk and stability. It's very interesting.
The others have a higher risk profile. But I
think there's nothing wrong with either one or the other. That is, there are different ways of doing and approaching systematic trading, and that's fine. And how has your life changed since you've achieved your goals with the training program, financially and in terms of your awareness?
Well, economically, not much has changed. As I told you, I have a business. So I do have another job that, I have to be honest, in the last few years since I was studying, because I study a lot, I have to say that I study a lot, so I am slightly slowed down in terms of my job. I devote a lot of time to trading, to developing my systems, to reading, documenting, and clearly reviewing the program again, as well as other things. However, nothing has changed for me as far as that. My life has not changed in that respect. Maybe it's changed a little bit in another sense, because when you study a lot, let's say perhaps you neglect some of your other hobbies or other things in the family. So, maybe my life has changed more in that respect, but not in terms of other things. Because you see that I also devoted my energy to trading. To trading not as observation of the markets, but as a study, as knowledge. that is reading various things. Yes, that has changed.
Okay, Giuseppe, finally, I'd like to ask you what you would say to those who are watching this interview and maybe are still undecided whether to join the program or not.
So I would say that those who see this interview and still don't know the potential of the Unger Academy training program should do it if they have the will to learn. Because, without studying, in my opinion, you cannot get anywhere. And unlike the other programs, I'm talking about, my own experience here. The other programs that I've followed, and they had highly qualified instructors, I'll tell you. The Unger Academy program, as I've said before, gives you all the basics to be independent, independent on your own. So you learn to create scripts, you learn to write them, and even if you aren't specialized in computer science or programming languages, there are basics that you can develop on your own with little effort. And then it is so clear that that isn't the end of the line, in the sense that you don't just follow the program and that's it. You're always looking for new things and experimenting with new things, but you always stay true to the fundamentals of the program. But I recommend it because Andrea and his staff are professional. And in my opinion and in my experience, I don't think they will find other tutors who give them that foundation.
Great. Thank you so much, Giuseppe, for the time and energy you put into trading so far. As always, I wish you happy trading. Enjoy, and I hope to see you soon as the winner of the Trader of the Month.
In that case, we'll do another interview.
Yes.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Ciao, ciao.